Check, check. Hello, just checking if you can see me and hear me.
Can you guys see me at the Rohtak? No, just a second. Hello, Rohtak guys, can you see me? Okay. You please also tell them to send me a link where I don't have to enter any password or anything. Yeah, please. Yeah.
Yes, sir, you're audible.
Okay. I'm audible?
Yes. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Honorable guest, Country Director of Afghanistan, the Asia Development Bank Limited, Mr. Narendra Singh, Executive Director, World Bank Group, Mr. Rajesh Kullar, Director Sir, esteemed faculty and fellow students. Welcome to the Induction Orientation Program of 13th batch of IIM Rohtak.
So we are delighted to announce that we have with us today Mr. Narendra Singh sir, the Country Director of Afghanistan, the Asia Development Bank Limited. Sir leads the Asia Development Bank's operations in Afghanistan, manage ADB's relationship with government and stakeholders, and oversee the implementation of ADB's country partnership strategy. Prior to his appointment, he was the head of the Project Administration Unit at ADB's Central and West Asia Department, as well as a principal transport specialist in the Transport and Communications Division. Before joining ADB, he worked as a senior business consultant at Halco Group Limited in the United Kingdom. We welcome you, sir.
We also have with us Mr. Rajesh Kullar, Executive Director, World Bank Group. Sir is an Indian diplomat and Executive Director at the World Bank Group, representing India.
I think sir has got disconnected for a bit of time. So we will like to ask Professor Dheeraj Sharma, Honorable Director, sir, to deliver the welcome address to Mr. Narendra Singh, sir.
Namaste, good evening. I don't want to take too much of your time. I think we already have such an eminent person, a dear friend who's been kind enough to spare valuable time to talk to all of you. So I think he's only given us half hour. If I take any minutes of that half hour, it's your loss. So we're grateful, sir. Thank you for coming, and it's over to you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Sharma. Indeed, it's a pleasure to be here. I hope you can hear me and see me.
Yes, sir.
Great. So thank you, first of all, for inviting me to this event. Indeed, it is an honor to talk to the PGP 13 batch and to share my views. It is interesting. I was thinking about it, that I was exactly in your seat about 30 years ago when I started my MBA. And it does sound like a long, long time ago. It makes me feel quite old, frankly. But I know what must be going on in your minds about the PGP program itself, and more importantly, what will happen after you guys finish the program and you graduate from IIM. So I would like to take this occasion to provide my insight about how the last 30 years have been for me, and importantly, what are the lessons that would be useful for you. And then I'll talk a bit about the Asian Development Bank and our work around Asia. I did my engineering from India, from the MS University, Baroda. And then I did my MBA from the University of Pune in Maharashtra. And at that time, and I'm sure even now, there is this motivation to combine engineering and MBA. And after I finished my MBA, I was working for some time in Larsen & Toubro and then with the ILFS. I'm sure you know all what happened to ILFS, infrastructure leasing and financial services. Not a great situation now, but at that time, this was like 1995 to 2000 period. ILFS was flourishing with several innovative deals and specifically getting into infrastructure development, which has then boomed massively in India. And at that time, I was keen on learning. This is the most important thing at your age. You need to absorb knowledge and use that to create new ideas. Quite often, I have seen that after MBA or PGP in your case, there is this craze for high-paying jobs. Let me assure you that you all will get high salary. But the important thing is for you to learn now, get all the concepts, analyze. And I want to focus a bit more on this analysis bit. After working in ILFS for 5+ years, I was working in a rating agency, CRISIL, for a short time. And that was when I got this high salary that everybody likes to talk about and the kind of lifestyle everybody wants. ILFS salary, at that time was quite peanuts, and we were just working for the experience. And then I got married and things were settling down. But what I did in 2000 was quite different from the rest of the crowd. I applied for a second master's course at the UCL, University College London, and I got a scholarship. I had this passion for infrastructure development and decided to get into international development. So this course at UCL was on international development and quite appealed to me. But can you imagine, that I was married. First, my firstborn was on the way. She was born in November 2000. And I left my nice, cushy job at CRISIL and decided to go back to school. Crazy, absolutely. And I was thinking about it now. What was I thinking? But you know what? I learned more in my 1 year at UCL than what I learned in the 6 years of education in engineering and MBA. And why? UCL made me analyze. They made me think and identify new ideas. We would have tests where the professor would actually tell us in advance what will be the questions. So we have time to prepare for the analytical answers and then write the exam. You know what? That was more difficult than not knowing the questions in advance. But it made me think, it made me analyze, and that is so important in your career. Although it helps you to do your job in a more, kind of high performance way, the important thing is that this analytical thinking also triggers the entrepreneur inside you. I really hope that several of you will have your startups, your so-called unicorns. That will be fantastic, not just for you personally, but for India in general. And this is what makes our country stronger economically. I have worked in almost all the countries in Asia. I have visited most of the other countries, especially Western countries. And I was recently in San Francisco in the Bay Area. And I felt really proud that there are so many successful Indians in the Bay Area with their own startups, which are quite successful. These are the people who took the risk. They said that, okay, we are not going to have the usual 9-to-5 job. We are going to have our own business and we're going to make it work. And that really encourages the entrepreneurial spirit, which I would like to trigger inside you. After I did my second master's at UCL, I was working in an international consulting firm in London on infrastructure projects. It was a nice, steady job. I've kind of felt I had joined, I'd reached there, I'd kind of reached the ultimate. But then I also felt that I had joined another rat race in the UK. Earlier it was in Mumbai, and now it was in London. And I worked in Halcro Group for about 4+ years, and then I kind of got that, what I call as the kida, to do something different. Again, something life was getting boring doing that same job, and then I had to do something different. And I applied multiple times to ADB and World Bank, thinking that, okay, this is where I want to be, doing infrastructure development, but no result. But I did not give up. I did some research on what areas was ADB active in, and what was it that it was looking for in terms of its new approach, in terms of how exactly it wants to go forward. And then I kind of modified my approach, submitted revised applications, and ultimately I got successful at ADB. The key thing is that any organization wants to know whether you are suitable to do the work that they want. It doesn't really matter what you think you should put in the application. What matters is what the organization is looking for. And that is key, to ensuring successful applications. ADB has been quite active in infrastructure development. In India alone, our active portfolio is about $7 billion, and we add about $1 billion to our portfolio every year almost. But I'm not working in India. I'm heading the country operations of ADB in Afghanistan. And this is an interesting country indeed. You all must be reading a lot about the Taliban and the conflicts in Afghanistan, and things getting really bad to worse, and not really a great sign for a country. So I was based in Kabul till about 2020. And after that, we had to evacuate all our international staff, and I was working from outside Afghanistan after that, but I'm still continuing to work on Afghanistan. So what I would like to do is to share an interesting story with you, something like I would consider as a case study. In August 2021, the Afghan government fell, and Ashraf Ghani had to flee from the country. We read it all in the papers. It was there and all over the news. And there was chaos in Kabul. People were trying to get out of the country. There were people who were trying to hang on to aircraft. And it's like crazy situation. And we, as ADB, had about 140 people in Kabul. These are all Afghans, all our staff, their families, their dependents, parents. In some cases, we had, kind of single women with parents who they were taking care of. We had people with, wives and children. And we did not have any obligation to take them out of the country. So legally speaking, we could have told them, guys, sorry, we cannot help you. And legally, it would have been quite okay. But this is where corporate responsibility towards your employees comes in. We talk about corporate responsibility in terms of environment and social practices, and things like environment, ensuring that there's clean environment and things like that. But there is a huge responsibility towards our own employees and their dependents. Now imagine if we left the Afghan staff and one of them was killed, would I have been able to sleep in the night? How would that have impacted ADB's reputation? These are all the factors that you have to consider when you are leading your own teams. Now, in case of Afghanistan, we tried to get our staff and the families out through chartered flights. We were ready to spend the money, but nothing worked. We spoke to the leaders of the neighboring countries, who might be friendly towards the Taliban at the time, are still friendly, but nobody was willing to help. The situation was such that every person was to himself, and there were no friends left in the country. So we were in a situation where there was no solution. We were stuck. We had the money to pay for whatever means to get our Afghan staff out, but there was no way. Practically, physically, there was no way to get them out. Ultimately, I told my security team that the only way out was to get the people out by road. And so in the cover of darkness, we organized cars, vans to get people out of Kabul and take them across to the Pakistan border. And then we had this arrangement with the Pakistan government to take people out, and we flew them out of Pakistan, and now they're all in safe locations, in Asia. The main point here is that we could have not done all of these things. We could have said, sorry guys, we are only in charge of paying your salaries, we will pay your salaries, but we don't need to take care of your safety and security. But we had to go that extra mile to take care of them. And this makes a difference. It made a difference to their lives, and such acts could make a difference to the future of your employees and their lives. And this point is quite important, to consider when you're leading teams, and some of you are going to be CEOs and owners of companies, and it is important that you take care of your employees. So talking about Asian Development Bank, we have been quite active on the infrastructure development side. We have projects all over Asia where we're talking about transport, energy, agriculture sector, and we are different from the normal banks who would be funding such projects. So you have the Macquaries of the world, you have Citibanks, and you have IFCs. What ADB does is to look at it from a pure human and economic development angle, rather than just infrastructure development. And this is where we bring out things like safeguards, we bring out social safeguards, environment safeguards, which are quite important for infrastructure development. And in addition to that, we also look at agriculture sector, where we are helping people in improving their agriculture patterns, in improving the cultivation of crops, and also quite importantly, in improving the efficiency of agriculture. All in all, we are looking at approvals of $15 billion every year all over Asia. There's a lot of money that is being pumped into these areas. The important thing is, how do we ensure sustainability? And this is where the roles of the governments all over the Asian countries come in. We work very closely with the governments to ensure that the assets that we create are then handed over to the government and made successful in the long run. And we are working closely with the governments to ensure that they have the capacity to operate and maintain these assets, and also to then replicate this model in other geographical areas in Asia. So that, in a kind of a very short nutshell, is what I would like to share with you. I'll be happy to answer your questions and share my views further. But let me pause here and open up the floor.
So all the students can ask the questions to the sir.
Good evening. I am Karan Sadana from PGP 13. So could you please shed light on what are some of the key indicators for infrastructure development?
Okay. Let me take one more question so I can answer both of them together.
Good evening, sir. My name is Hari Keshav, and I'm from PGP 13. So my question was, in this time of rapid urbanization, how do you actually bridge the rural and urban infrastructure gap?
Okay, interesting question. So let me first talk about the indicators for infrastructure development. Now, infrastructure development has typically been seen as a driver for economic development. People say that, okay, we need roads so that roads will lead to industries and people's movements will increase, and it will lead to more industrialization, trade, etc. Now, my own view is a bit different. As I feel that, yes, infrastructure development is needed for economic development, but infrastructure growth creates jobs. It leads to further employment. And rather than us looking at infrastructure development as just a driver for economic development, we should look at it in terms of it enabling jobs and employment. Now, the classic example I can give to you is that of the US. The US in the last century, they went all out to kind of develop their railroads and their highways. So the objective there was not just to link their huge country and the states, but it was also to create jobs, to ensure livelihoods for people. And for me, in India right now, that second or the dual objective is quite important. We have a huge population and we have to keep them occupied. We have to ensure livelihood for them. And the key factor for infrastructure development there should be not just economic development, but also employment generation. Now, in terms of indicators, when you say indicators, indicators could be triggers for economic development, or it could also be how successful has economic development been. And as I said, the first part I have answered, but the second part as to whether infrastructure development has been successful is is indicated by the movement of people across the country and the development of small and medium-scale industries across the country. So, if we talk about, say, the Northeast, there has been a major push for infrastructure development in the northeastern states of India. But the objective there is to bring them into the main fold and to ensure that there is small and medium-scale industries that can be developed there. And that then links to the second question about the urban and rural divide. In my opinion, there is this particular perception in the rural areas that going to the cities and working in the cities is the in thing. You get more money, you are able to get a better job and better lifestyle. I would like to reverse that particular thinking and say that we can create jobs in rural areas also. There are small and medium industries that can be developed in rural areas, provided we have appropriate infrastructure there. We can get reliable electricity supply in these areas, we can get water supply in these areas, and we are able to ensure a certain degree of law and order in the rural areas. All of these are necessary but not sufficient conditions. The perception will change when jobs are created in rural areas. And that particular divide that we see now between urban and rural areas can get lower and lower if we are able to create these jobs in rural areas. I'm hoping that I have answered your question, but if you have any follow-up question, I'm happy to answer that or any other question.
Thank you, sir.
Good evening, sir. I'm Sham from PGP 13. I have a question regarding Afghanistan. Sir, since you still is the country director of Afghanistan chapter of ATV, how do you actually reconcile this ethical dilemma of catering to infrastructure development of Afghanistan, yet somehow facilitating the foothold of Afghanistan Talibani government?
This is my biggest dilemma right now, that how do I continue helping the Afghan people without contributing to the Taliban regime? It's a big, big issue for us, because anything that we do in Afghanistan is bound to indirectly contribute to the local government there. But this is the classic international development dilemma that I learned when I was doing my master's. And there was this question that a professor asked us that, okay, if there's corruption in the system, do you still want to give funds to the system, knowing that these funds are going to go into the corrupt hands? But if you don't give these funds, you are going to make several other people suffer because they do not have the support systems that these funds will enable. So what do we have to do? We can't stop funding. We cannot say that, guys, there is Taliban there. We cannot deal with the Taliban administration, so we will not give you money. That then is going to result into the local, the poor Afghan to suffer, because he doesn't have job, he doesn't have food to eat. There are Afghans who are selling their children just to get enough money to feed themselves. So we are now in a position where we are taking that very brave step forward, saying that, yes, we do want to help the Afghan people. We want to do certain elements of economic development, not necessarily infrastructure, but something to do with humanitarian support, which will help the Afghan people without really contributing to the Taliban administration or to their kind of activities. And this is that kind of delicate line that ADB is treading right now, where we are working through the UN agencies. So we are saying that, okay, we will give money to the UN agencies in Afghanistan. We will not give the money to the government, and we will ask the UN agencies to deliver food and health infrastructure and education to the Afghan people directly without going to the government. Now, this requires a lot of monitoring. It requires a lot of oversight over what the UN is doing and how our funds are being managed. And this is what we are discussing now. And I believe World Bank is doing the same. I've been in touch with the World Bank country director, Melinda Good, for several months now. And we are both grappling with the same situation, that how do we move ahead with helping the Afghan people without contributing to the Taliban administration. So yes, it's not an easy thing, but getting there.
But obviously, Talibani government won't let you to bypass their authority, right? So,
well, we are getting into a bit of a political discussion, but it is happening. It is, we are able to implement our projects without engaging with the Taliban administration.
Thank you.
Due to constraint of time, sir won't be able to take any more questions.
And now we would like to call Dheeraj sir to deliver the vote of thanks to our esteemed guest.
Thank you, Mr. Singru. So kind of you. We're really honored that you were here and you could spare time, talk to our students. I hope it was for a longer duration. Thank you very much. You have a pleasant day and look forward to seeing you in person very soon. We hope we can organize it very soon. Thank you again. And it's good seeing you. You're looking younger than the last time I saw you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Sharma. Indeed, it's a pleasure to be, to talk to your students, and of course, to see you again. Thank you again for inviting me. Have a nice day.
Now, I'm honored and delighted to welcome our most important guest, Mr. Rajesh Khulla, who is Executive Director in World Bank. And he was so excited about talking to you that he had first logged in about 30 minutes ago. So I requested, sir, I said, sir, please wait. We'll start at the right time. He is, been with the World Bank for a couple of years now, but prior to that, he served as the Principal Secretary to the Chief Minister of Haryana for 5 years. And he's a career bureaucrat. And I have personally known him. I have never seen an individual work so hard as I did with him. And it is incredible that the transformations that he has brought about in our state and now in World Bank. Sir, it is an honor and a pleasure to have you, albeit in an online mode. Over to you.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Dheeraj. Thank you very much. And I hope I am audible and visible on the screen. I wish I could be present with you in the hall. And I have very fond memories of the time I spent in Rohtak, close to more than 2 years, when I was Deputy Commissioner and the District Magistrate in Rohtak. I would have loved to do that, but well, this is a constraint with us. But I'm more worried about the bigger constraint, which is that we have only 90 minutes together. But added to that is something which happened just now, that everyone I'm speaking to in the hall, or those who are listening to me at least, poor things. I'm worried about them. They have just now had a wonderful, from whatever I could make out in the last 2 minutes that I saw of the previous session. I have nothing to add to that, actually. I mean, I can sum it up. Dr. Dheeraj, I had asked Dr. Dheeraj, what am I supposed to do for 90 minutes? And I would actually love to give more time. He said, no, that's enough. You just talk about what the World Bank does and what do you do there. So going by what Mr. Singru was saying towards the end, I can pretty much say World Bank is doing everything which you have already learned ADB is doing in Asia. So that's it. And what do? I sit on the board of the World Bank, and I represent, as you know, the bank is owned by all the sovereigns in the world. So I represent Bangladesh, Bhutan, Sri Lanka, and India on the board. That's pretty much it. But I know, I was saying the bigger constraint that I realize is that poor thing, you guys have had to, continue with this session without a break, and it can be too much. So I presume you've been already there for more than 90 minutes listening to stuff like this, which means nothing to you. You are having...
Sir, no. The students were only there for about 25 minutes prior to.
Well, when I was a student, 20 minutes is more or less the outer limit of a student's attention to what's going on, even in a classroom with a teacher. On a virtual screen, time is somebody who is not in that country, who is working with some World Bank, with which, most students have nothing to do. I wonder if there is more than one who has a dream of joining the World Bank ever amongst the crowd. So I can still empathize with them. What I will do is, I know when I was age, if I were in that hall on one of those chairs with you, I mean the students, I would be worried about, I know what I would be worried about. What do? I've come to Rohtak to do this thing. I've worked for a couple of years. I've had some education. It doesn't seem to be meaning much. Have I taken the right decision? What will happen once I pass out? Will I really get a good job? Will I be able to square off the money that I've raised? Will my parents be happy? And in case those who are married, I do not know if there are some, how are the spouses going to react to this decision? Why did you go there? And what did you gain in 2 years? and how to make the most of it now that I'm here. Now, those are the kind of things that worry you. So let me restrict myself, my initial remarks to only that, and I will love to live up to the promise that I gave Dr. Dheeraj Sharma, that I'm happy to take as many questions as I can in these 90 minutes. So I will request the students to really begin thinking about it, even as I make this 3 or 4 minutes worth of initial remarks, to ask me anything under the sun. Anything under the sun that you are thinking about. It doesn't matter. It doesn't have to do with management. It doesn't have to do with Rohtak. It has to do with what's going on in your minds. What are your anxieties? What are your worries? If you really need guidance on something, or if you need somebody else's viewpoint because you are still not sure, you're not made up your mind, you're doing the right thing by doing whatever you're doing, or whatever you are thinking of doing, I'm very happy to be of assistance. So here it goes. What I will do in these 2-3 minutes is I'll tell you the biography of every human being who is currently alive on earth, who ever was alive on earth, or who shall ever get to live on earth after now. That's a very difficult task to write the biography and to share the biography of every human being. But I don't have to do anything to do that. It can be done very easily. It can be done in 7 sentences. It has actually been done already. It was done by an Urdu poet. And I will like to recall those 6 or 7 lines for you. To my mind, this very short poem, one of the shortest poems. I mean, I've read shorter poems, which are shorter than 7 lines, but this one does a great job of summing up the whole human life experience from an individual human's reference frame. Here it goes. And I'll be very happy if I begin to recite it, and after the first line or the second line or somewhere, or maybe already somebody can guess which poet, which poem, I will be delighted. I'll be absolutely delighted to be interrupted by maybe a raise of hands. If already you know which poet I'm talking about and what is the poem. If you don't, but after a couple of words, if a bell rings, I will love that somebody stops me, takes the mic, and completes the rest of it. There it goes. Sorry. वो लोग बहुत खुशकिस्मत थे. खुशकिस्मत मतलब सिर्फ खुशकिस्मत नहीं, मेरी बात समझने के लिए खुशकिस्मत को आप समझिए ग्रेट. Anybody who you consider to be a great human being, no matter what the walk of life, cricket, politics, literature, management, what have you, वो लोग बहुत खुशकिस्मत थे जो काम से आशिकी करते थे या इश्क को काम समझते थे. Anybody who was great, is great, will be great, will fall in either of these 2 categories. वो लोग बहुत खुशकिस्मत थे जो काम से आशिकी करते थे या इश्क को काम समझते थे. हम माने, 8 billion, or maybe if 40 billion people have lived on earth already, then 40 billion minus the greats. वो लोग बहुत खुशकिस्मत थे जो काम से आशिकी करते थे या इश्क को काम समझते थे. हम जीते जी मसरूफ रहे, बिजी. हम जीते जी मसरूफ रहे, कुछ इश्क किया, कुछ काम किया. काम इश्क के आड़े आता रहा और इश्क से काम बिगड़ता रहा. And here we come to the last line now, which is the biography of all greats and non-greats. वो लोग बहुत खुशकिस्मत थे जो काम से आशिकी करते थे या इश्क को काम समझते थे। हम जीते जी मसरूफ रहे, कुछ इश्क किया कुछ काम किया, काम इश्क के आड़े आता रहा और इश्क से काम बिगड़ता रहा। आखिर तंग आकर हमने दोनों को अधूरा छोड़ दिया। So my hope with this session is, and my wish is, that none of you, has the fate of hum, and you have the fate of the greats. May you soon discover what moves you if you have not already. What's your passion? If you were to die tomorrow, what is it that you would like to finish tonight? Discover that. And if you're going to die 20 years from now, what is it that you would like to accomplish by then? Think about it and convert that into your work. Well, if you can't figure it out, if you're lost between the two, then you are undergoing the fate of humanity, what is called suffering. That has not changed. If somebody has read these celebrated books of Yuval, the Sapiens and Homo Deus, and you know who I'm talking about, then you would see. How many people have read the book Sapiens? No. Yeah, quite a lot. That's impressive. I would have guessed in a room full of so many smart people, it would be difficult not to have one hand go up, but so many hands went up. I'm so happy. So if you remember the book, in one line, what is the book saying? After describing the whole human history, in fact, the sequel of the book as well, the second one, Homo Deus, what he's saying is this, that no matter what the technological progress, no matter what the political progress, no matter what the economic progress, the fact is that human life is suffering. And Buddha was not wrong. That's what he says. And eventually what you have to figure out is how to go beyond suffering. Not the Buddha way, not the Nirvana way, while living. And to me, if you can find an overlap between your work and your passion, that's so much, an assurance of you being suffering less. Okay, there goes. I think I'm done. And if I've not lived up to the promise of explaining what I do and what the bank does, and people are really worried about it and want me to talk about it, I'm happy to take those questions as well. But as of now, I think I'll give my speech a break and wait for anything that's thrown at me. Very happy to take it.
Thank you, sir. We are delighted to have you here today. Now, sir is open to a few questions.
Hello, sir. I'm Rutuja Mahale from PGP 13. I wanted to ask you what are the job opportunities for a postgraduate student at World Bank Group?
Well, I would answer that to the extent I can, but I would recommend that you go to the website and see everything. But by and large, all the vacancies are notified. More than 90% people are taken on an external basis. So there's an open competitive way people come in. But talking of levels, I can give you some sense. One is, it's a bureaucracy. It's a bureaucracy like any other bureaucracy. And if you can find a comparison with the Indian bureaucracy, let's say their equivalent of IAS, the top, like the UPSC civil services, where you come in young and then begin to hold strategic positions right away, and then you rise upwards. That thing is called the Young Professionals course, the Young Professionals, the YPs. People who come there have to have a minimum of a master's degree in economics and accountancy and stuff, but public policy. But most people who actually make it are either PhD students already or have finished a PhD. So that happens pretty young, at a very young age, your age maybe. So that's an annual kind of an exam, and a batch from all over the world is selected, and then these guys get to rise up to the level of vice president of the bank or the managing director of the bank. But then there are a number of positions that would vary from, you see, the bank has country offices, including in New Delhi, and so the people are recruited locally. Most of these recruitments, I mean, for people like you, would be at the level of consultants initially, short-term consultant, extended time consultant. They would be paid at the country rates, which the bank has determined. But then there are international recruitees also who are paid differently on international rates in dollar terms. But no matter whether you're paid on national terms or on international terms, one big perk is that, and no matter where in the world you work, you are income tax exempt. So there is an arrangement of all countries in the world that since it is their bank, they won't take income tax from people who work with the bank. Then there might be one more element to it for completion, some bit of completion, the answer. When we say bank, in fact, there's nothing called the World Bank, by the way. I mean, if you get technical about it and you begin to look at, documents and say, what is World Bank? Well, there is none. So how it happened was there is something called the World Bank Group, though. World Bank Group is basically 4 institutions, in fact 5, if you will. One is but on the road, when we say World Bank, in the conference rooms, when we say World Bank, the ordinary understanding of World Bank is 2 different organizations. One is called the IBRD, International Bank for Reconstruction and Development. That's the one which was set up after World War II and came to be popularly known as World Bank, the International Bank for Reconstruction and Development, primarily of Europe and other countries that were devastated elsewhere, that were devastated by the World War II, and how to reconstruct them. But in 1960s, they came up with another concept, which is IDA, International Development Association. The board of IDA is the same as the board of IBRD. And practically people are intertransferable. But what IDA does is it focuses its effort only on the very poor countries. India, for example, is no longer an IDA country. India used to be an IDA country all through 1960s till about 2014 when the transition happened. And we are now an IBRD country. So when we get loans from the World Bank, we're actually getting loans from the IBRD. But earlier on, we used to get loans from IDA. The difference is IDA loans are concessional. They're cheaper. They are of a longer duration. In IBRD, a country cannot borrow for more than 12 years for a project. But an IDA project could be, even 40 years long, and repayment moratorium for maybe first 10 years. In IBRD, there is no moratorium on repayments. You have to begin paying as soon as, after the first installment is disbursed. So these 2 entities together, they have the common board. So I sit on the board of IDA, I sit on the board of IBRD. And their shareholding structure is slightly different, but more or less the same thing. So the 2 together can be then seen as World Bank. However, in the World Bank Group, there is another organization called the IFC, International Finance Corporation, which works with private sector. IDA and IBRD work only with the governments who borrow money. But with IFC, private sector companies can borrow. And in India, IFC has a huge portfolio of more than $2.5 billion already. These investments by IFC could be in equity, they could be in loans, they could be in various kinds of capital. But the thing is that the companies have to be doing something which would lead to economic development. So maybe reduction in poverty, in human capital development, issues, and they have very strict, these companies should be, following very strict prescriptions of IFC on gender, on environment, on human labor, and all the social safeguards. And then there is the third by the way, IFC in India office has about 187 people already working there, of whom maybe 10 might be international and rest national. And by the way, interestingly, IFC yesterday has approached us, Government of India's clearance on creation of 5 new posts in India office. So you will see maybe a month later advertisements for filling up of those 5 posts. Then there's another organization in the World Bank Group called MIGA, Multilateral Investment Guarantee Authority, which essentially, if some company invests abroad, an Indian company is investing in Africa, let's say in some country, and IFC is giving it money, but that company is not sure that tomorrow, due to some political turn of events, their investment may go bad, or they are not allowed, the African nation passes a law saying you cannot take your profits out from Africa, from the country. So what is the guarantee? So the Multilateral Investment Guarantee Authority can sell this private company a guarantee on a guarantee fee that, okay, we take guarantee for such kind of a risk that your investment will be expropriated, we will pay. That they will not allow you to take away profits, we will then pay. So that is IBRD, IDA, IFC, MIGA. There's another organization which falls within the definition of World Bank Group institutions, which is the ICSID, which is the dispute redressal arm when 2 nations or company of one nation and the other company begin to file basically about dispute arbitration in international economic investments. So they have also their own process, but India, by the way, is not a member of ICSID. So you would have job opportunities in MIGA, IFC, IDA. I mean, I can go on. That's why I said in the beginning, you should have better look up their websites and keep yourself updated. But bright people like you can surely make it if you have that passion for economic development.
Thank you, sir.
Good evening, sir. It's Mishti here from PGP 13 batch. So I have one of a question from my end, like what are the 2 key learnings which I should implement in my PGP journey from your experiences only?
Thank you, Nishti. My experiences would mean nothing for you. Everybody's experiences are, let's say, if you have the scientific background, n is equal to 1. We are all n is equal to 1 experiments, right? So if you run statistically large experiments, randomized controlled trials, you need a minimum value of n. You know how new drugs are invented. What is the approval process? Tomorrow, suppose somebody comes up with a drug which will treat Alzheimer's. So my company comes up with that solution and I work out a molecule which will work. You know how trials happen? You know what regulators do before I can sell that drug in the market? Government of India will not allow you to buy that drug, nor will Government of US allow you to buy that drug till the drug regulator, the drug approval authority has approved. And what will they want? What will they want me to show? How will they assess the evidence that the drug works? Anybody? I'm happy to hear if somebody tells me. Tomorrow I invent a pill which says, my claim is you take this pill, you will not cry during the day. No matter what happens to you, you will not cry, guaranteed. And I'm sure lots of people want to buy that one. I want to sell it. Governments will not allow me. They will say, where is the evidence? And how do I show it to them and so that they are satisfied that there is enough evidence? It's called a randomized controlled trial. Somebody has an idea now? How does a randomized controlled trial work? So,
Sir, we have two groups, a control group that
wonderful.
we administer placebo to, and the other is we give the actual drug to.
Right. So you have two groups of people, 100 people in here, 100 people here. Do not let them know which group they belong to. Give them pills. To 100 people, give this pill which my company has made. To the other 100 people, give another fake pill, which is nothing in it. And do not let them know. Let the doctors also not come to know who is getting the real pill and who is getting the fake pill. Run the experiment. Invariably, it would happen. What would happen is, at the end of the trial, you will see that out of the control group of 100 who got the pill, not everybody will, get the benefit. 80% people will get the benefit. Surprisingly, in people, the group of 100 people who got the fake, the non-control group, whom our friend said placebo group, there also some 30% people will report that, yes, we were absolutely fine. It worked. It was a fake pill. It's a placebo effect, but it works. That's what they will say. Now, the question would be, this number, 30%, is the placebo effect. But then the real effect, 80%, is it statistically significant? If it is statistically significant, then the regulator will say, okay, good, the drug works, take it. But if the numbers are 30% there and 35% here in the control group, and N is not 2. I mean, you do not take 1% here and 1% here. N is significantly higher, maybe 1,000, 1,200, 1,400, depending on the kind of drug and the kind of symptom it is treating. So if it is a statistically significant difference, then you will get. So unfortunately, Nishti, N is equal to 1 in my case, and that means nothing for you because you yourself are N is equal to 1. However, I will answer, and I think we have, I'll give you a very honest answer. But meanwhile, I've slightly forgotten the exact words of the question. I know the spirit. You said, based on my experience, what are a couple of things that I can tell you you should
implement in my PGP journey here in Ireland?
Okay. So we have already learned one thing thanks to Faiz Ahmed Faiz's poem that I shared with you. Find your passion. But I know that's a very generalized question, and what you want is, I do not know, something happened on my screen. I'm not sure I'm still visible. Okay, I hope I'm audible. My screen went blank.
Yes, sir, you are audible.
Okay, so the answer there is very specifics, and when you get down to specifics, let me tell you what. I don't know you, Nishti, but the answer has to be such which can perhaps work for a statistically significant number of people in this room. Our level of ignorance is very high. We don't realize it. We think we are smart. We think we have come this far. I've cracked CAT. I've cracked the UPSC. I'm smart. We are. But honestly, no matter who you are, including Albert Einstein when he was at the peak of his career, our level of understanding of reality around us is very low. We are highly ignorant people. Each one of us. And we should recognize this fact daily, every moment. What we know is nothing. And what we know about ourselves also is almost zero. We just don't know. None of you knows right now. Suppose there is somebody who is now looking at his phone, or scared that somebody will see that he's looking at his phone as smartly using a device whereby his attention is somewhere else and not here. And he's happy about it. He doesn't really know why. He thinks he knows. Now we are getting into details of it. I'll not like to get into it. But this is what our parents and our forefathers used to say, our parents still say, and the whole civilizational journey and cultural journey. Look at Socrates. What did Socrates say? What are the two most famous words of Socrates in answer to Nishti's question? I'm sure somebody knows. What is the Delphi command given by Socrates to every human being? Know thyself. And that holds true even now. We just don't know how our brains work. And may I finish off the answer by saying that those of you to whom this is making a wee bit of a sense that this is true, and our parents are right when they say, have humility. Don't think you know everything. And it is not about a specific thing. The bigger question of why we do what we do, why we don't do what we don't do, why we think we are constrained and we are, are somebody who is within this body and has, whatever constraints their minds have given them or society has written out into the software of the minds. And what are my biases? What are my prejudices? And are they paying me in living well? They might have paid me so far very well. Your go areas, your no-go areas, which are in your each one's brains and are different. Some of you smoke, some of you don't. Some of you drink, some don't. It works. It has been working for both of them. The fact that they're alive is working. Some of you get up early in the morning. Some of you work till late in the night, and don't get up early in the morning. It works for both of you. But why what works for you works? And would it work tomorrow? Are you at your peak while doing that? Those are questions you have to answer for yourself. And I know you need, this is a smart question, Nishti. You need many answers, n is equal to 1 answers from many people, but instead of that way you'll be wasting a lot of time going around asking 100 people and you're still not sure. Is it a good thing to wake up early in the morning and go out in the sun? I can almost shock you out of your chairs by saying the next sentence, but I'll hold it back. I've twice already thought that I'll stop here. I have not. So let me give the advice first. The thing to do, Nishti, and for anyone else who's excited a little bit about whatever mumblings I have given so far, go to YouTube and subscribe to at least one channel I'll recommend to you, Andrew Huberman podcast. Guy's name is Andrew. Andrew. Huberman is Huberman. Huberman. Andrew Huberman is a neurobiologist and an ophthalmologist who works at Stanford. And every Monday morning, he does a podcast, which could be anything from 1 hour to 2 hours. His only purpose of doing that podcast is to bring to the world, to Nishti and anybody else who's interested, at zero cost to you, what science has uncovered till yesterday about mundane things we do every day, and what works for what kind of people and what cannot work for what kind of people. And you can take your cues from there. Let me shock you by giving that. How many of you have heard the word dopamine? Dopamine. Oh, many of you. So somebody please speak out about what dopamine is, what it does to us, two short sentences, and what is their personal tool or substance or activity that gives them the highest rise in dopamine. I'm in the listening mode now. Anybody can take the floor and tell us what is dopamine, what does it do, and how do they raise it in their lives? If you want a dopamine high, what will you do right now? I saw many hands going up. At least I got the impression that many people know what dopamine is.
Hello.
Sorry,
Hello, sir.
I don't know. Yeah.
My name is Govindam.
Yeah.
Sir, dopamine is basically the hormone secreted by our brain, which makes us feel the feeling of happiness. So,
okay,
the thing I do to that makes me feel happy is like in hanging out with my friends and listening to music.
Okay. And what is the high, the level of high that you can get? And what kind of music then gives you the highest high and the longest high? How long does the high last?
The utility of the type of music depends upon my mood. Like if I'm happy, a beat song give me the high, and if I'm like a little down, rap songs give me a bit of the high, and the utility lasts for maybe an hour or two.
Wonderful. Thank you, Gurvinder. Okay, the answer is more or less, okay. He'll get pass marks on that answer, certainly, and maybe a better grade than somewhere close to first division, but not the correct answer. I'll give you the correct answer and then link it up with a bigger thing. See, dopamine is a hormone, as he says. By the way, we are all hormones. If every moment my hormonal level are changing, there are 4 or 5 big time hormones which are determining all my moods and everything that I'm doing. If that hormone factory stops, I'm dead. You lie like a vegetable. You will not have the feeling of getting out of the chair. You'll keep sitting like this if a particular hormone doesn't come. Right? We think God is making it happen, but actually science wants to know what's going on here. So science is not into the debate of whether there is a soul or not, whether there is free will or not, whether there is this thing, why I do what I do. Some of you, Dr. Dhira Sharma has already left. He has better things to do, and I can appreciate. Some of you also have better things to do, maybe more urgent as well, but are not leaving the hall right now. Why? The answers are not in some big intellectual thoughts, but the answers are which hormones are going around in you right now. I can very well see 20 of you just now. If I say something, 20 of you might immediately leave the room saying this fellow is unpatriotic, this fellow is not an ethical guy because he made a remark like this, he used an unparliamentary word. So you walk out. You may walk out, you might think 20 of you went together, but actually those are 20 individual decisions based on what hormones were released in your body when you heard those words. What is to be blamed, or what is it at the root of every single behavior that we do, every moment, is hormones. Now coming back to his answer, dopamine is the hormone not for happiness, but for motivation and reward. You want to do something? You want to go and have a cup of tea now? You have the motivation. If dopamine rises, your motivation will increase. You will go out, grab a cup of coffee, drink it. You get the reward, because you have achieved the goal. The whole anticipation of reward coming, abhi jaunga, chocolate khaunga, that only begins to raise your dopamine. And the moment the reward comes, you get that great feeling and the dopamine begins to go down. That's what happens. That's what happens in a smoker's body. When a smoker wants to go out of the classroom and smoke, even when, a 3-hour examination is happening, but he wants to go out and smoke, he knows he doesn't have time. What's happening is he's getting motivated to do that act, and he's actually seeking the thrill of higher dopamine. So if you look at this, we are talking about mundane things. I was saying I'm going to shock you. So the point is, like anything else, how high the dopamine goes and how long it remains there. Now, there is plenty of literature in, peer-reviewed journals, Nature, Cell, and Andrew Huberman. If you look at one of his podcasts, he will explain to you, which paper proved what. The thing is, now this is shocking. And all our elderly will be dancing and our parents will be clapping. You will not clap this. But I'm going to tell you a scientific truth uncovered by replicable n number of studies already uncovered. People have tried, 20 known things that raise dopamine and which all of us use in various forms and in various quantities. Sugar, you get a dopamine high. It lasts for some time. Try it. Why do you feel good when you have had a barfi or a laddu? Suddenly you feel good. You don't take a laddu because you were feeling good. You take a laddu, your hand goes out because you get motivated and you're looking for the reward and your dopamine is going to go up. You don't know it, but that's what actually is making you take the laddu. There are guys who can open the fridge who are given laddu but won't take it. They don't need the dopamine high at that point of time. Very rarely are they making conscious decisions that no, I must go on low on sugar, or my doctor has scared me, you will die if you have one more laddu. That kind of a situation, extreme apart. Routine, when we are indulging in unthinking behavior, this is what's happening. So sugar, so coffee, so smoke, so cocaine, so one word which should not be used in gatherings like this, but I don't mind it. It's known, it's one of the biggest, one very huge dopamine high that you get is indulging in sexual behavior. That gives you a dopamine high. And there are 20 such items. So people have done n number of experiments to figure out that giving this to an ordinary human being, these 20 things, one after the other, in experiments, which gives them how high a dopamine level and how long the high lasts. You know what is the answer? Which is the thing which beats everything, both in peak and the duration considered. Guess which human activity gives practically all normal human beings the longest lasting dopamine high and a substantial high. That substantial high is higher than the smoker's high. It is almost the level of a cocaine substance abuse, and a wee bit shorter than the highest high that one gets is the sexual act. Just a little bit higher, lower than that, but compared with the sexual act, a much longer high, 90 minutes of high. Guess what? Your parents will clap once they know the answer. The answer is given by science. It's a paper published in the European, first published the study carried over thousands of N is equal to control group and thousands in placebo. Anybody wants to take a shy at it, you do it almost every day. I mean, I hope most people do. Particularly the ones who are feeling uncomfortable, your faculty members, I can sense it even on the screen, that what is this guy talking about? What kind of a lecture is this? But they do it every day. They don't even know it. If somebody wants to take a shy at it, please do. 1,000 rupees special award from me. And when Mr. Dheeraj Sharma comes back, I can make them a recommendation to keep an eye on this particular student. He would be a high performer. Okay, there is the answer. Somebody, I see somebody standing. Do they have the answer? Yeah.
Is it cleaning our room?
Sorry?
Is it cleaning our room or organizing our room?
Well, it's, this is not the right answer, but this is one of the 20 activities. Yes. Cleaning stuff around you gives many people a good dopamine high. Yes, it does. Here it is. Okay, somebody else wants to take a shot.
Hello, sir. Is it dreaming?
Dreaming? No. I don't think people can voluntarily dream, right? So you cannot voluntarily dream. So dream by definition is, anyway, I mean, I don't think you can ask people to sit down and begin dreaming. I mean, that, and if they really can, that amounts to thinking, yeah.
Is it going through a phone?
Going through a phone.
Yes.
You know, by the way, this is, thank you for raising this. This is one of the most addictive behaviors. And actually, it does temporarily give you a dopamine high, but it does it, there are enough papers to show that it does it in a manner that once the reward is over, you have spent your 10, 15 minutes, whatever. Once the reward is over, the seesaw goes in the other direction. The trouble with dopamine is with the social media addictions is that soon enough, you are hankering after it once again. You'll hardly find a person smoke 2 cigarettes, in a chain. People say there's chain smokers, but I bet you have never seen somebody who standing before you smoked 1 cigarette, then smoked another, and then smoked another in the next half an hour. Even he will get sick. You say, nonsense. And then, after half an hour, 1 hour, 2 hours. But in social media, that motivation for the reward actually comes back right away. So this is one of the silliest addictions to get into. Yeah.
I'm guessing is it working out?
No. Exercise does give a dopamine high, but never close to what cocaine does or smoking does. People who exercise, they get a high, they get a dopamine high. They certainly do get it, but it is not in peak. It is much low, and maybe it lasts longer. I don't know the answer, but anyway, yeah. One last chance.
Is it sleep?
Sorry?
Sleeping.
Okay, good. No, not really. I'll tell you what happens. By the way, sleep. She's raised a beautiful question there. If you don't mind waiting for a wee bit more for the answer, she has raised such a profound subject. Why do we sleep? Tell me, what is the scientific answer? What happens that we sleep? Some people say, nahi aaya neend, maine kya. Hota kya hai body mein? Scientifically, ki so gaya banda.
Our body repairs itself from the exhaustion.
नहीं वो थ्योरी, वो तो हो गया नींद का फायदा है. नींद के दौरान क्या होता है, उस बंदे को क्या हो गया होता है अगर उसकी बॉडी के ऊपर लगा दिया जाए 50 तरह के मेजरिंग टूल्स, इंस्ट्रूमेंट्स. वन थिंग कि देखो ये हुआ तो सो गया, नहीं हुआ तो नहीं सोया.
He goes into a dream.
नहीं, वो तो जब स्लीप में चला जाएगा उसके बाद आएगा. होता क्या है शरीर में, क्या चेंज हो गया होता है कि सो गया. I know somebody knows the answer in this room. It is, yeah.
Hi, sir. Sir, what I like to believe is when our brain works more like a computer. We have a kind of a short-term RAM. Like whatever we process during the day, there's a like RAM kind of thing. And while we sleep, we filter out the unnecessary thoughts and we store the important thoughts that we need on our brain. And in the long term, like it's like that's why as we grow up, like the incident, like when I came in, I remember it like a video, right now. Like I walked in that way, but over time it will become more like a screenshot kind of thing. Like how we save it, because we have to save our memory. So it's like our hard disk gets full. So to cut off it, we conserve the thinking process, and we cut off the videos into like kind of screenshots, and we conserve it there. And over time we process that out to we filter it out. So I'm more on the thought process.
Yeah. I know what you're saying. So all these answers that you're saying, you see, this is where we began. This is where we began initially. We have some kind of an understanding about everything that happens to us. That's what I said. It has come down from right from Vedas to Ayurveda to, to scientific literature, to our people telling us, our parents telling us, we believing. That's how human beings are. That's what Sapiens argument is. Harari. You all know Harari. His argument is that we are groupthink and we don't have time, and nor we should have time to waste on wondering about why I get sleep. That time is with the scientists who give their life to understanding what's happening. And here is the answer. They give their life. Sometimes they spend their lives, they don't succeed. And but we work on a group thing and hear things. This is what I said. We are ignorant. We are highly ignorant. And everything is worth paying attention to. Everything. Your choices are yours. So here comes the answer. It is another hormone. What is the name of that hormone? If your body does not secrete that hormone, and if you do not take that hormone, you shall not fall asleep. You will remain awake whole of your life. That's it. The answers that you're giving are good answers, but they are pertaining to who has designed this body, human body like this. Whether it is God, I do not know who designed this body. And if there was somebody who designed this body, I was not present at that time of designing. They didn't consult me, or they didn't even teach me why they were designing. But we are given bodies. And this is the answer. One particular hormone which is not present, which is not released by normal working pituitary glands during the day. That's why you don't sleep during the day. As the sun sets, the level of that hormone begins to rise from 0 upwards. Now there is a threshold level for every human being, which might be slightly different, 0.001 mg less for you than the person sitting on your right. But once that much hormone is present, you fall asleep. Why do you wake up? Because after around 6 to 8 hours of sleep, depending on your body, that hormone begins to vanish. Once it becomes 0, you are up. What is the name of the hormone? Yeah, I see one hand go up.
Good evening, sir. It's called melatonin.
Absolutely. Melatonin is what makes you sleep. Its absence is what keeps you awake. That's it. Now, who has designed this put in our body right from our beginning, from our birth? God did it. I mean, let's not get into that. But that's the truth. That's the scientific truth. Now, there was a lady who brought up this whole sleeping business. Sleeping does all things. But once melatonin reaches that level and you fall asleep, dopamine stops. Dopamine stops because no further motivation to do anything, no further reward to be had. You lost your brain. You are now, your body is doing its work of repairing, as people said, cleaning up the memory and whatever. Now, here is the answer, which I said your parents and your faculty are doing it all the time, and you will be they will be very, very happy to hear the answer. Oh God, science says this. They say, okay, let me make it more tantalizing. Just one more departure from here. You have had a cold water shower many a time in your life. You have had a hot water shower many a time in your life. Tell me, it is one of these two activities. Which one is it? The answer is one of these. A cold water shower, a hot water shower. Maybe I can leave you without the answer. Maybe you can figure it out yourself. But I do not want this session to be totally wasted. This is what I'm saying. Science says that a cold water shower, the cooler, the better. If it can be ice bath, It's the perfect. In the morning, a cold water shower in the morning gives you a dopamine high, almost touching the sexual act, and 90 minutes lasting. Take a shower at 8 in the morning, cold as possible. See it in your bodies, your level of motivation to do something will go on for 90 minutes, whether you want to study or do what. A hot water shower does not. In fact, a hot water shower is high just before you hit the bed, half an hour to 1.5 hours before you go to sleep. The reason is, for those of you who understand physics, the reason is this, that this whole sleep-awake cycle is precisely this. You can take your body temperature measure 24 hours, any human beings. This is what's going on. When you wake up, about an hour and a half before that, when you're actually out of the bed, when your sleep is gone, about 90 minutes before you are up, your body temperature is at its minimum. Do not think your body temperature is, whatever people have told you, 94.2 or whatever it is in the thermometer. No, it changes every moment. It is at its minimum about 90 minutes before you wake up. And from there, it begins to go up. As it goes up slightly more, melatonin becomes 0, you are out of the bed. Now, through the day, the temperature keeps rising. It picks up somewhere around 2:30, 3 p.m. in the night, in the afternoon, depending on where you live and, latitude, longitude, all that stuff. But generally, this is the direction during the day that the body temperature will keep going up. And as the sun sets, the temperature is now beginning to decline, and it keeps declining through the night. And that's the signal for cortisol to stop, which is another hormone, which is a stress hormone, which is up whole day. With the temperature, cortisol is up. Melatonin is 0, as we told you, in the morning only. And as the temperature begins to drop, sun begins to set, melatonin begins to release, begins to go higher, temperature keeps rising as you are taking. इसीलिए बोलते हैं, ये सबसे बड़ी बकवास दुनिया में ये हो गई कि जुराब पहन के सो लो. कभी देखना, जुराब पहन के सोगे अच्छी नींद नहीं आएगी, because body wants to cool. Sleeping means temperature कम होने दो, AC on होना चाहिए. You should aid the body towards cooling down. If you can aid that process, you'll sleep better. So they say, take a hot water shower. क्या होगा? Hot water shower लिया होगा 1 घंटा 1.5 घंटा पहले, तो जितना गर्म हो जाएगा शरीर, न्यूटन्स लॉ ऑफ कूलिंग, उतना फिर अब एक्सेलरेटेड कूलिंग शुरू हो जाए. You take a cold water shower in the evening, ice bath, you'll not be able to sleep because सारा temperature पहले ही इतना बुरी तरह से गिर गया होगा. So that's the answer. I think this sums up. We talked about sleep, we have talked about waking up, we have talked about motivation. So those are the 2 or 3 things that you can do. You want more of this stuff? You want to know more about what science has to teach us about various mundane things that we do, how to perform better? Please do look up Andrew Huberman.
Thank you, sir. Due to time constraints, sir won't be able to take any more questions. Now we'd like to request Dean, Research and Executive Education at IIM Rohtak, Professor S.K. Pandey, to deliver a vote of thanks to our esteemed guest.
Thank you, Mr. Kuller, for such a wonderful high dopamine interaction with the students and the faculty. I'm sure that we have got at least 2-3 things to learn from it, and many of us will experiment with it to see how it works with our body. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you. Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure. It's been a delight being with you guys, and wish you all the best. Please make the most of every single minute on earth that you are here. Thank you and wish you good luck. You are at a great institution, and which is, I personally know, being run by a great director. So make the most of it and good luck. Thank you. God bless.
Thank you, sir.
This marks the
Thank
end
you.
of the day 1 of induction program. You all can leave to your hostels.